Welcome to the England Valley Storytellers monthly story swap meeting. I'm John St. Clair, and I'm the leader of this group and the Zoom host as well. And we're ready to start with some stories tonight. We have one, two, three, four people here and three people on Zoom. And most people know everybody except Chris and I have a friend who's joined us, and I'm not sure that you guys know her.
You
Um,
came here once before. I recognize the name.
yeah. Um, so John C. has been on Zoom before as well as in person to some of our concerts, and her mother used to come to our concerts. Um, I don't know if you remember an elderly woman that used to come to our concerts, but kind of like Virginia Stark. Anyway, welcome, Johnsy. So, who would like to tell the first story?
Hey, I have to say that I have been telling stories literally all day, and I told four stories in Topeka Canyon for the Christmas in the Canyon this last weekend. So I've been through all of my Christmas tales except one. Okay, and I will be happy to tell the legend of the first Christmas tree. I will warn you in advance that I never tell it in a school setting because it's a bit too religious.
Okay. I'm going to go over there and I'll turn this around. Let's have you sort of face, I'll move over.
Oh, okay.
So,
Ding, 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 ding.
can you
I'm more or
see?
less center screen.
Okay. Okay. Try it.
In a ravine at the top of the hill, toward the top of the hills, they, they once stood a grove of beautiful conifers. They're long gone now. That land is only known to the roe deer, and the rabbits. But in those days, there were beautiful conifers in many parts of the Middle East. And this one was not far from a famous town or two. It was one midwinter, and the trees were just saying, it doesn't seem as dark this night. There's something changing, something strange. And then over the hill came a bright light, a star that was far brighter than most stars were. One of the eldest trees said, I have stood here for centuries. I have never seen anything like this. What can it possibly mean? The light seemed to be moving, but then it paused, and down from it came a beam of light onto a small, little, young tree, and it lit up all of its branches. They didn't know what this meant, but from that moment on, the little tree was blessed, for at its furthermost branches there were always a shining light where an angel stood guard. That particular night, there had been singing in the heavens. They didn't understand it. We would. Gloria in excelsis Deo. For those 5 years went by, And the weather was always perfect for that grove of trees. And the little tree grew taller and stronger. And sometimes the other trees would ask what he thought any of this meant, but he had no answers. One day, a man and a boy of maybe 11 or 12 came up into the grove, which happened from time to time, with tools for cutting down a tree. The man said, "Hang around in the trees for a bit, Jesus. I got to pick out which tree we're going to take." "Yes," he said. The young boy walked slowly toward the tree. The tree wasn't frightened, but he looked out and the two little lights at the end of the branches were down at the boy's feet. He looked at the tree. He reached slowly forward and plucked a needle off of it and held it to his nose. Oh, being plucked didn't hurt. What hurt was the eyes of the child. They seemed to see a sudden burst of sorrow. More years went by. The tree grew, and every year at midwinter, there would be suddenly a beam of light, an angel surround the little tree. One year, though, not anywhere near midwinter, a group of Roman soldiers with slaves came, and they began to cut down the trees. They cut down the whole grove, including the little Christmas tree. He was hauled off, and he wondered, why haven't my spirit fled? The others cannot speak to me, but why am I still here? Time went on. He was left in a basement for a long, long, long time. Finally, though, he was hauled out into the sun. There was a crowd there, an angry crowd, calling and mocking someone. A human being was led over to the top of a hill. And then the beaten man looked at him, and those eyes, he knew, and he thought, why this man of all men, of all times? Why am I here for this? What is going on? He spoke but 7 times. And when he said, into my hands I commend my spirit, the spirit of the little tree fled also. But each year it wintered in a place now known only to the roe deer and the beasts of the field. Every year at midwinter, suddenly the shape of the little tree appears.
I've never heard that one.
I it's the only Christmas tale I don't tell often because it really is only appropriate to a Sunday school class. I mean,
Well, thank you. That was great. Do you have a story, Nick?
I do. I just don't know if I should follow Ron's because it's a very no, it's a Christmas
Well,
tree
what about
story
you, Adrian?
also, but it's a very different
Oops,
Christmas
it's
tree
frozen
story.
again. Dang it. Ah.
Yeah, it froze a couple of times during Ron's story.
Yeah. I think Nick should
You
go
know, this
ahead.
happened once before here. The internet connection for
Nick, you should go ahead. Let's hear 2 back-to-back Christmas tree stories.
Well, all right. I can do it. Are you unfrozen yet, John? We can just talk amongst ourselves. Well, John's face is moving, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, we lost the connection here and totally. I think it's definitely here. Now the question is it their router or is it my old laptop? And I just told the people here I bought a new laptop and I'll bring it next month and see if that makes a difference because this
Yeah,
is not.
because Adrian and I were able to communicate without interruption. You guys were the ones who stopped moving last time.
Yeah, well, we totally dropped the connection and Zoom had to restart.
Yeah, I suddenly found myself the host of the meeting for several seconds.
That's pretty funny. Okay, Adrian, do you have a story that you want
She
to?
wants she wants me to tell the other Christmas tree story, so I'll
Yeah,
go
I
for it.
think Nick should go ahead.
Okay, all right. Let me put you on spotlight, Nick.
All right.
All right, spotlight for everyone.
And this is a story I learned a long time ago that I used to do with kids at the library because it has to do with what came before the tradition of the Christmas trees as we know them. And it's just kind of a fun story.
Shoot, there we go again.
You see, once long ago in the land they call Bavaria, there was a very old and a very small woman, and she had her own customs to celebrate Christmas that were also very old because she liked them that way. She would take her little donkey into the forest and cut down a small tree and bring it back to her small house and set it up inside the house. Now, at that point, every year she cleaned up her house, and that included sweeping the floors, but more importantly to her, sweeping the ceiling, because that's where the spiders gathered to build their webs. And she wanted everything to be all clean and tidy. And then she would decorate her tree and put strings of dried berries on it and hang fresh winter apples on it. And then she would make cookies and decorate the tree with cookies. And when all that was done, she would invite in all of the children from around where she lived. And they and their families would come and celebrate Christmas with her.
Adrian and John see
Now,
They said that they were fine, but they just couldn't get us. Last
are you guys not hearing me?
Uh-oh.
They may have lost the connection. Well, I'm seeing John's computer is still connected,
Yeah.
but I don't know because they don't seem to be hearing.
Are you guys aren't able to hear us? Uh-oh. That's weird. Oh, okay. Looks like it rejoined.
Yeah.
this is very frustrating.
Yeah.
Well, Adrian was getting to hear me.
Yeah, I got to hear. You might have
Yeah,
to repeat that last sentence.
the question is I'm recording to the cloud. I wonder if it was recording everything, even though we were frozen here.
That I can't tell you. If it was recording direct to the cloud, that might have worked for any point where you were connected, but I don't know how that works or how you have it set up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, do you remember where you were?
Well, that's the thing. I couldn't tell when you lost connection.
Well, just go from when you
Yeah,
know
back
when
up.
to call us.
Yeah, back up a few sentences. I think you're good.
Right. It's just, what was the last thing you heard? That makes it easy.
Apples and berries.
All right.
Okay.
Well, in addition to the dried berries and the winter apples, she made cookies and hung those on the tree. And then she invited all the children from the houses nearby and brought them into her home with their family's knowledge and consent because they knew her from their own childhoods because she had been there since before anyone else in the whole village. Well, she swept the floor and she swept the ceiling. She swept out all of the spiders from off of the ceiling. And let me tell you, those spiders were not happy about that. I mean, they worked hard all the time to catch bugs that would have otherwise have been in her home, and she just dumped them on the porch as if they were of no importance at all. They never got to celebrate Christmas with her. Well, that year, late in the night, when Father Christmas comes through to visit all of the families, he was coming through to deliver toys to all of the children in the village. And what did he see? A bunch of spiders hopping mad on the little old lady's porch. Well, he went over to see what was going on because a bunch of hopping mad spiders is not something you see on Christmas Eve normally. And he asked them, "What is so upsetting?" And they said, "She threw us out again. We never get to celebrate Christmas. We can look in the window and see, but it's not the same. We just wanted to see how the tree looks from up close and climb up and down, and we wouldn't ruin anything. We wouldn't even eat the berries or anything. We just wanted to see." Well, Father Christmas still had some houses to visit, so he said, "I'll tell you what, I will let you in if you promise to behave and come out when I say so." "Oh, we promise, we promise." And he opened the door just wide enough for spiders to go in and closed it very quietly so as not to wake up the little old lady who was asleep by this time. The spiders looked, and the tree was so beautiful. The berries, the apples, the cookies, but just the idea of the little tree inside the home there, it was so pretty. And so the spiders decided, let's climb up. And they went all the way to the top of the tree, and they could look down and see how she had decorated the berries and how she had placed the apples and how she had spaced out the cookies so they looked just right. And they said, "Oh, this is so great." And then the spiders said, "We'd better get ready to go back out when Father Christmas comes back for the spiders." And so they started lowering each other down on their threads, but they got distracted because some of the berries looked shinier over there. And so they would go over and climb up and look down on those and then lower themselves some more on their threads. And the cookie, oh, that cookie over there, she made patterns on it. And they went over and down and up and down. And by the time the spiders all got down to the ground, they hadn't damaged anything. But the entire tree was covered with new spun spider webs. And they went over and very politely waited by the door for Father Christmas to open it. And he opened it and he looked. And there were the spiders very politely coming back out onto the porch. And there was the tree, absolutely covered with spider webs. Oh no, what have I allowed them to do? And he thought about it for a moment. And it would take much too much time to individually pull these webs off, and the spiders, it might hurt their feelings. So he thought, I know. It will take just a little bit of Christmas magic. I can spare that much. And he made the spider webs shiny, sparkly, as if they were made of spun silver. And then he quietly closed the door again. Well, the rest of Christmas night was fine, just as usual. But when the little old lady got up in the morning, there was something different about her tree. She was quite sure that when she went to bed, it didn't have silvery threads running all over it. She looked, she touched them. She hadn't put them there. Maybe for once in her entire life, there had been magic on Christmas Eve, and don't you know she had slept through it. But it was too late to try and take them all off, and besides, they looked very pretty. So it was that she went out and called all the neighborhood children in the village, "Come celebrate Christmas with me." And out of the doors, up and down the path, children came and their families followed. And they went in, and the children went, "Ooh," when they saw the tree. "You never decorated it like that before. That's pretty." "Well," she said, "I didn't do it. It was just kind of Christmas magic." And the kids all nudged each other with their elbows and said, "Yeah, right. It was a great surprise. We're glad you did that. That's great." And they all began to share the cookies and the apples and the dried berries. And they had made so much noise that the mothers and fathers looked in the door and said, "Where did you get those silver threads? That's so pretty." And she shrugged and said, "It's just Christmas magic. Nobody believes me." Well, the gentlemen of Bavaria are very practical about these things, and when they see their wives and children getting so happy and so excited about something, they decide to go and see if they can do something about it. And so it was that over the next several months, they searched and found sources for thread and metal foil and various other things to see what might look good on a tree. They didn't want to spend a lot of money, but they did want their children and their wives to be happy when they looked on a tree the next year. And so it was that the next year, even though the little old lady didn't have silvery spider webs on her tree, some of the other families did in a way. And so it was that in a town in Bavaria, the tradition of putting tinsel made of silvery materials onto your Christmas tree came about. And so it was that a new type of silver decoration, you might call it Christmas magic. And magic it was, for you see, the way those silver threads looked, they reminded her of something. Spider webs, she thought. Maybe I could leave those up next year to see if they'll remind people of what this looked like. And so it was that the magic included the spiders getting to be inside to watch the tree from that point on. And that's the story of the first Christmas tinsel.
Nice. Oh, that's lovely.
Great story. Okay, Adrian, do you have something?
I do. I haven't had a chance to edit it, so it might be.
Oh, you froze again.
Oh, that's odd.
Yeah, it's
You're
whatever it
frozen.
is happening at the Claremont end.
Yeah, because we're not frozen. Oh, there's Chauncey's picture. Yay.
Well, that's frozen, but
So,
it's a still photo.
yeah, exactly.
I just got a message saying your internet connection is unstable. No
Uh-huh.
kidding. Oh boy.
Yeah, you're still frozen even though we can hear your voice. There you are.
Yeah,
Okay.
finally. Boy, this is very frustrating.
Yeah. Well, I do have a story. I might need to glance at my notes from time to time because I haven't fully memorized it. I need to edit it down, but I don't think it's too long. So, from his childhood, he had been as one filled with perfect knowledge of God. And even while he was yet but a lad, many of the saints, as well as certain holy women who dwelt in the free city of his birth, had been stirred to much wonder by the grave wisdom of his answers. And when his parents had given him the robe and the ring of manhood, he kissed them and left them and went out into the world, that he might speak to the world about God. For there were at that time many in the world who either knew not God at all, or had an incomplete knowledge of God, or worshipped the false gods who dwelled in groves and have no care of their worshippers. And he set his face to the sun and journeyed, walking without sandals as he had seen the saints walk, and carrying at his girdle a leathern wallet and a little water bottle of burnt clay. And as he walked along the highway, he was full of the joy that comes from the perfect knowledge of God. And he sang praises unto God without ceasing. And after a time, he reached a strange land in which there were many cities. And he passed through 11 cities. And some of these were in valleys, and others by banks of great rivers, and others set on the hills. And each city he found a disciple who loved him and followed him. And a great multitude also of the people followed him from each city. And the knowledge of God spread in the whole land, and many of the rulers were converted. And the
This is
priests
worse
of
than the other time.
uh-oh. Are you frozen?
It'll be interesting to see if it is still recording.
You're frozen?
No, we're back.
For a while. You're back.
Okay. You do understand that when you're talking about it being frozen, we're hearing you. So,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yes. So, okay. So,
Cities and disciples where we were.
yes. Let's see. And a great multitude of people also followed him from each city, and the knowledge of God spread in the whole land. And many of the rulers were converted, and the priests of the temples in which there were idols found that half their gain was gone. And when they beat upon their drums at noon, none, or but a few, came with peacocks and with offerings of flesh, as had been the custom of the land before his coming. Yet the more the people followed him, and the greater the number of his disciples, the greater became his sorrow. And he knew not why his sorrow was so great, for he spoke ever about God and out of the fullness of that perfect knowledge of God, which God had himself given to him. And one evening he passed out of the 11th city, which was the city of Armenia. And his disciples and a great crowd of people followed after him. And he went up onto the mountain and sat down on a rock and was on the mountain. And his disciples stood around him. And the multitude knelt in the valley. And he bowed his head on his hands and wept and said to his soul, "Why is it that I am full of sorrow and fear, and that each of my disciples is as an enemy that walks in the noonday?" And his soul answered him and said, "God filled thee with the perfect knowledge of himself, and thou hast given this knowledge away to others. The pearl of great price thou hast divided, and the vesture without seam thou hast parted asunder. He who gives away wisdom robs himself. He is as one who gives his treasure to a robber. Is not God wiser than you are? Who are you to give away the secret that God has given you? I was rich once, and you've made me poor. Once I saw God, and now you've hidden him from me." And he wept again, for he knew that his soul spoke the truth to him, and that he had given to others the perfect knowledge of God, and that he was as one clinging to the skirts of God, and that his faith was leaving him by reason of the number of those who believed in him. And he said to himself, "I will talk no more about God. He who gives away wisdom robs himself." And after the space of some hours, his disciples came near and bowed themselves to the ground and said, "Master, talk to us about God, for you have perfect knowledge, and no one but you has this knowledge." And he answered them and said, I will talk to you about all other things that are in heaven and on earth, but about God I will not talk to you. Neither now nor at any time will I talk to you about God. And they were angry with him and said, You've led us into the desert that we might listen to you, and you send us away hungry, and the great multitude that you've made follow you? And he answered them and said, I will not talk to you about God. And the multitude murmured against him and said, You have led us into the desert and given us no food to eat. Talk to us about God, and it will suffice us. And he answered them not a word. For he knew that if he spoke to them about God, he would give away his treasure. And his disciples went away sadly, and the multitude of people returned to their own homes. And many died on the way. And when he was alone, he rose up and set his face to the moon and journeyed for 7 moons, speaking to no one or making any answer to anyone. And when the 7th moon had waned, he reached the desert, which is the desert of the great river. Having found a cavern in which a centaur had once dwelt, he took it for his place of dwelling, and made himself a mat of reeds on which to lie, and became a hermit. And every hour the hermit praised God that he had suffered him to keep some knowledge of him and of his wonderful greatness. Now, one evening, as the hermit was seated before the cavern in which he had made his place of dwelling, he beheld a young man of evil and beautiful face, who passed by in mean apparel with empty hands. Every evening, with empty hands, the young man passed by, and every morning he returned with his hands full of purple and pearls, for he was a robber, and robbed the caravans of the merchants. And the hermit looked at him and pitied him, and he spoke not a word, for he knew that he who speaks a word loses his faith. And one morning, as the young man returned with his hands full of purple and pearls, he stopped and frowned and stamped his foot upon the sand and said to the hermit, Why do you look at me ever in this manner as I pass by? What is it that I see in your eyes? For no man has looked at me before in this way, and the thing is a thorn and has troubled me. And the hermit answered him and said, What you see in my eyes is pity. Pity is what looks out at you from my eyes. And the young man laughed with scorn and cried to the hermit in a bitter voice and said, I have purple and pearls in my hands, and you have but a mat of reeds on which to lie. What a pity should you have for me? And for what reason have you this pity? I have pity for you, said the hermit, because you have no knowledge of God. Is this knowledge of God a precious thing? Asked the young man, and he came close to the mouth of the cavern. It's more precious than all the purple and pearls of the world, answered the hermit. And have you got it? Said the young robber as he came closer still. Once, indeed, answered the hermit, I possessed the perfect knowledge of God, but in my foolishness I parted with it and divided it amongst others. Yet even now is such knowledge as remains to me more precious than purple or pearls. When the young robber heard this, he threw away the purple and the pearls, and he was bearing in his hands, and that he was bearing in his hands, and drawing a sharp sword of curved steel, he said to the hermit, Give me forthwith this knowledge of God that you possess, or I will surely slay you. Wherefore should I not slay him who has a treasure greater than my treasure? And the hermit spread out his arms and said, Were it not better for me to go unto the utmost courts of God and praise him, than to live in the world and have no knowledge of him? Slay me, if that be your desire, but I will not give away my knowledge of God. And the young robber knelt down and besought him, but the hermit would not talk to him about God, nor give him his treasure. And the young robber rose up and said to the hermit, Be it as you will. As for myself, I'll go to the city of the 7 sins. That's but 3 days' journey from this place. And for my purple, they will give me pleasure. And for my pearls, they will sell me joy. And he took up the purple and the pearls and went swiftly away. The hermit cried out and followed him and besought him. For the space of 3 days he followed the young robber on the road and entreated him to return, nor to enter into the city of the 7 sins. And ever and anon the young robber looked back at the hermit and called to him and said, "Will you give me this knowledge of God, which is more precious than purple and pearls? If you will give me that, I will not enter the city." And ever, oh, sorry, hang on. Uh, there we go. And ever did the hermit answer, "All things that I have, I will give thee, save that one thing. For that thing is not lawful for me to give away." And in the twilight of the 3rd day, he came nigh to the great scarlet gates of the city of the 7 sins. And from the city there came the sound of much laughter. And the young robber laughed in answer and sought to knock at the gate. And as he did so, the hermit ran forward and caught him by the skirt of his raiment and said, "Stretch forth your hands and set your arms around my neck and put your ear close to my lips, and I will give you what remains to me of the knowledge of God." And the young robber stopped. And when the hermit had given away his knowledge of God, he fell upon the ground and wept. And a great darkness hid him from the city and the young robber, so that he saw them no more. And as he lay there weeping, he was aware of one who was standing beside him. And he who was standing beside him had feet of brass and hair like fine wool. And he raised the hermit up, and said to him, "Before this time thou hadst perfect knowledge of God. Now thou shalt have the perfect love of God. Wherefore art thou weeping?" And he kissed him. That is the story of The Teacher of Wisdom by Oscar Wilde. Oh, were you able to hear it?
Yes, I could.
Okay.
That is so different from any of the other wild stuff.
Exactly. A student of mine gave me that earlier this semester from his theology class. And I thought, wow, that is a very different Oscar Wilde story. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing. That was wonderful.
I need to edit it a little bit, but
I'm just
yeah.
I'm hoping that the Zoom recorded the whole thing because we missed part of it.
Oh, what part did you miss? Did you get at least to hear the end?
No.
Oh, wait, you got to hear the end.
You want to tell it again?
I won't tell the whole story again.
No,
Where
no,
did,
but at the very end,
yeah. So,
when the brass feet appeared,
ah, okay.
we didn't hear what was said.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, when the hermit had given away his knowledge of God, he fell upon the ground and wept, and a great darkness hid him from the city and the young robber, so that he saw them no more. And as he lay there weeping, he was aware of one who was standing beside him. And he who was standing beside him had feet of brass and hair like fine wool. And he raised the hermit up and said to him, "Before this time thou hadst the perfect knowledge of God. Now thou shalt have the perfect love of God. Wherefore art thou weeping?" And he kissed him. That is The Teacher of Wisdom by Oscar Wilde.
Uh, all right, yeah, very.
Yeah, we were remarking it. I mean, that's such a different story from so many of the things that Wilde wrote. Like, wow. So
Well,
Mhm.
thank you for that. I don't really have a story tonight, and with this connection, it might be very frustrating for me to try. I mean, I could tell a story, but um, I'm getting very frustrated by this internet connection. And hopefully next month I'll bring the new computer and we'll find out whether the problem is with the computer or with their Wi-Fi here. It at this point it's impossible to know for sure because I do have an old computer.
Do, do you know if your cell phone does a hotspot connection?
Yeah, that's the other thing we could do. In fact, we just got new internet with
Yeah.
3 GB
Mhm.
hotspot available.
Yeah. Try it out on a couple of things. I found that sometimes I've had to revert to that because my usual hotspot doesn't quite work. And my online teaching is dependent upon, being able to connect. So yeah, so sometimes I have to switch to my phone hotspot and it works great.
Well, thanks for the suggestion, Adrian. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And it'll be interesting to see what was recorded because you could still hear, right, Nick? You could hear the
Yes.
story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Adrian and I could hear each other and
Hmm.
see each other. We never froze relative to each other. I don't know what
Yeah.
Johnsy saw or heard, um, but I suspect whatever was going wrong was there at your end.
Yeah, yeah. So, and since it was being saved to the cloud, it might have when we put it on YouTube, we might actually be able to hear it all. I don't know.
You might have to do a little bit of creative editing for places where things jumped over gaps. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.